Queen Lyra sat on her crystal throne and stared at the reports in front of her. The papers showed pictures of a strange ship that had appeared at the edge of her empire's space. The ship looked different from anything she had ever seen before. It was made of metal and had no energy crystals on its surface. Most strange of all, her scouts could not read the minds of the people inside. The queen was only 23 years old, but she ruled 12 solar systems. Her people, they Zephyrians, had special powers. They could read minds and talk to each other. Without speaking, they could move things with their thoughts and see into the future. These powers made them the strongest race in the galaxy. Every other alien species feared them or served them, but this new ship was different. The people inside were silent. To Zephyrian minds, no one had ever seen anything like this before. "My queen," said General Keith as he walked into the throne room. He was an old soldier with gray skin and bright purple eyes. "The strange ship is still there. Our scouts tried to board it, but something went wrong." Lai looked up from the reports. "What happened to our scouts?" "They could not enter the minds of the creatures inside. When our warriors tried to use their powers, nothing happened. Aliens inside the ship did not fall under our control. They fought back with weapons we do not understand." The queen felt a chill run down her spine. In all her years of ruling, no one had ever been able to resist Zephyrian mental powers. Her people controlled other races by entering their minds and making them obey, but these new aliens were different. "Show me the images again," she said. General Keithmer pressed a button on his wrist device. A blue light filled the air above them, showing pictures of the alien ship. The vessel was long and silver. It had strange markings on its side that looked like letters, but not in any language the Zephyrians knew. "Our computers cannot read their language," the general said. "We tried to scan their minds to learn their words, but we found nothing. It is like they have no thoughts at all." Lyra stood up from her throne. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and long white hair. Her eyes glowed with purple light when she used her powers. She had been born with stronger mental abilities than most Zephyrians. That was why she became queen so young. "Have you tried talking to them without using our powers?" she asked. The general looked surprised. "Talk to them, my queen. We have never needed to speak with other races. We simply enter their minds and make them understand, but we cannot enter these minds," Lilai said. "So we must try something new." She walked to the large window that looked out over her capital city. Below, millions of Zephyrians lived in tall crystal buildings. They moved through the air. Using their mental powers, they talked to each other with their thoughts. Everything in their world was built around their special abilities. "What do we know about these aliens?" the queen asked. General Keithmer read from his report. "The ship came from a direction where we have found no other intelligent life. Our sensors show that the aliens inside have 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head like many species we know, but they seem to have no mental powers at all. No powers at all." Lay turned around. "How is that possible? How do they build ships? How do they communicate?" "We do not know, my queen. This is why they are dangerous. We cannot predict what they will do. We cannot control them. I believe we should destroy their ship before they can bring more of their kind here." Lai thought about this. Her parents had been killed 3 years ago by enemies who wanted to take over the empire. Since then she had learned to be careful about new threats, but she was also curious. These aliens were unlike anything her people had ever found. No, she said finally, we will not destroy them yet. I want to learn more about them first, my queen. This is dangerous. If they have no mental powers, they might think in ways we cannot understand. They could be planning to attack us. Then we will capture one of them. Learily said, bring me their leader. I want to look into their eyes and see what kind of creature has no thoughts for us to read. General Cathmer bowed. It will be done, my queen. I will send our best ships to surround them. Wait, the queen said. How will you capture them if you cannot use your powers on them? The general paused. This was a good question. Syrian warriors always used their mental abilities to make enemies surrender. They would enter an enemy's mind and fill it with fear, or they would take control of the enemy's body and make them put down their weapons. But none of this would work on these strange aliens. We will use our energy weapons, the general said. We will damage their ship until they have no choice but to surrender. Liline nodded. Do it, but be careful not to kill them all. I need at least one alive to study. After the general left, Lyra sat back down on her throne. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, trying to sense the alien ship at the edge of her space. She could feel the minds of her own people. Everywhere in the empire, she could sense the thoughts of millions of other alien races that served her people, but from the direction of the strange ship, she felt nothing. It was like a hole in the universe where minds should be. This scared her more than she wanted to admit. Her entire world was built on the power of the mind. What would happen if more of these aliens came? What would happen if other races learned that mental powers could be resisted? She opened her eyes and looked at the reports again. At the bottom of the last page, there was something interesting. Her scouts had managed to record some of the sounds the aliens made when they spoke to each other. The words were strange, but her computers had found patterns in them. The aliens called themselves humans. Their ship was named Aurora, and their leader was something called Captain Jake Morrison. Lay said the name out loud. Jake Morrison. It sounded simple, not like the long, flowing names her people used. She wondered what kind of creature this Jake Morrison was. Was he large and frightening? Was he small and weak? Did he know that he was about to face the most powerful race in the galaxy? Most importantly, she wondered what it would be like to meet someone whose thoughts she could not read. For her entire life, she had known what everyone around her was thinking. She could sense their fears, their hopes, their lies, and their secrets. But this Jake Morrison would be different. He would be a mystery. As night fell over the capital city, Lyra made her decision. She would capture this human leader and bring him to her throne room. She would look into his eyes and try to understand how a creature with no mental powers could build ships and travel between the stars. She did not know that far away in space, Captain Jake Morrison was making a decision of his own. He had seen the Zephyrian scout ships. He knew they were powerful and dangerous, but instead of running away, he was planning something that would shock the entire galaxy. He was planning to surrender. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the alien vessels surrounding them. There were 12 Zion warships, each one twice the size of his own vessel, they moved through space, without making any sound, and their hulls glowed with purple energy. "Captain," said Commander Lisa Park, his second in command, "they're trying to scan us again. Our shields are holding, but I don't think they'll wait much longer before they attack." Jake nodded. He was 28 years old and had been exploring space for the past 5 years. His ship, the Aurora, was humanity's first vessel to travel this far from Earth. They had been sent to find new worlds and make contact with alien life. But he had never expected to find an empire this powerful. "Any word from Admiral Burke?" Jake asked. "He's ordering us to retreat immediately," Lisa said. "He thinks we're in over our heads." Jake looked at the alien ships. Again, he knew the Admiral was probably right. The Aurora was just an exploration vessel. It had some weapons, but nothing that could fight 12 warships. If these aliens wanted to destroy them, they could do it easily. But Jake had been studying the aliens' behavior for the past 3 days. Every time they tried to board his ship, something strange happened. The alien soldiers would get close, then suddenly stop and retreat. It was like they were afraid of something. "Lisa, run that recording again," Jake said. "The one from when they tried to board us yesterday." Lisa pressed some buttons on her control panel. A screen showed images of alien soldiers approaching the Aurora in small ships. The soldiers looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and glowing eyes. They wore armor made of the same purple energy as their ships. In the recording, the alien soldiers came very close to the Aurora, then all at once they stopped. Their ships turned around and flew away quickly. The soldiers look scared. "They're afraid of us," Jake said. "But why? Our ship is smaller than theirs. Our weapons are weaker. What could they be afraid of? Maybe they've never seen humans before," Lisa suggested. "Maybe they don't know what to expect." Jake thought about this. During his years of space exploration, he had learned that most problems could be solved by talking. When his ship had found dangerous space storms, they had talked to other explorers and learned safe routes. When they had encountered hostile aliens before, they had used words instead of weapons to avoid fights. "Open a communication channel," Jake said. Lisa looked surprised. "Captain, we don't know their language, and they haven't answered any of our messages." "Try anyway. Use the basic mathematics signals. Every intelligent species should understand numbers." Lisa worked at her controls for several minutes. Finally, she said, "Channel open, Captain." Jake took a deep breath. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Aurora. We come in peace. We want to talk." For a long time there was no answer. Then a voice spoke in a language Jake didn't understand. The words sounded musical, like singing. "Computer, can you translate?" Jake asked. "Working." The ship's computer said. "Limited translation available." The message says, "Strange creatures cannot read. Minds are empty, dangerous." Jake frowned. "They think our minds are empty." Another message came through. This time the computer translated it. "Better, you will surrender. You will come with us. You will be studied." Lisa turned to Jake. "Captain, they want to capture us." "I know," Jake said. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said something that shocked everyone on the bridge. "Send them a message. Tell them we agree." "Captain," Lisa stood up from her chair, "you can't be serious. If we surrender, they might kill us, or they might talk to us." Jake said. "Lisa, think about it. These aliens have never seen humans before, they're afraid of us. For some reason, if we fight them, they'll just blow up our ship, but if we go with them willingly, we might learn something important. What if they're hostile? What if they want to hurt us? Jake looked at his crew. There were only 20 humans on the Aurora. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. If the aliens wanted to destroy them, resistance would be useless. We came out here to make contact with alien life. Jake said, this is our chance. Yes. It's dangerous, but everything worth doing is dangerous. Lisa shook her head. Admiral Burke will be furious. He'll think we've lost our minds. Maybe we have, Jake said with a small smile. Send the message. Lisa reluctantly pressed the buttons on her control panel. Message sent, Captain. Within minutes, the alien ships began moving closer. One of the larger vessels extended a docking tube toward the Aurora. Jake could see alien soldiers waiting inside. They want to take us to their ship, Lisa said. No. Jake said, send them another message. Tell them I want to meet with their leader. Tell them I'll come to their home world. Lisa stared at him. Captain, you want to go to their planet? That's suicide. It's diplomacy, Jake said. If I go to them, it shows that I trust them. It shows that humans are not afraid. The translation took several tries, but finally the aliens understood Jake's message. There was a long pause. Then a new voice spoke through the communication system. This voice was different from the others. It sounded younger and more musical. The computer translated, you will come to our world. You will enter our sacred space. Willingly? Yes, Jake said into the microphone. I will come alone if needed. Another pause. Then this is unexpected. No creature has ever asked to visit our world. We will consider your request. The alien ship suddenly moved away from the Aurora. They formed a circle around Jake's vessel, but kept their distance. What are they doing? Lisa asked. I think they're as confused as we are, Jake said. For the next hour, the aliens seemed to be talking among themselves. Jake could see lights flashing between their ships. Finally, the young voice spoke again. Human Jake Morrison, you may approach our world, but you will come with only a small ship. You will bring no weapons. You will submit to our examination. Jake felt his heart beating faster. This was it. He was about to become the first human to visit an alien world. Agreed, he said. The aliens gave him coordinates for their home planet. It was called Vila, and it was 3 days away at maximum speed. As the Aurora began its journey, Jake stood in his cabin and looked out at the stars. He thought about Earth so far away. He thought about his family and friends who had no idea that he was about to meet an alien queen. He also thought about the fear he had heard in the aliens' voices. They were powerful enough to destroy his ship easily, but they were afraid of humans. Why? What was so special about his people that had scared an entire empire? Jake knew he would find out soon. In 3 days he would walk into the throne room of the most powerful alien race in the galaxy. He would look their leader in the eyes and try to make peace between their peoples. But first he had to survive the journey, and he had to hope that his decision to trust these aliens would not be the last mistake he ever made. As the Aurora flew through space toward the alien world, Jake Morrison prepared himself for the most important meeting in human history. He did not know that on the planet ahead, a young queen was preparing for the same meeting, and she was just as nervous as he was. Jake Morrison's small shuttle flew down through the atmosphere of Vellara. Through the window, he could see a city unlike anything he had ever imagined. Tall buildings made of crystal reached up toward the sky, glowing with soft purple light. Alien people moved through the air between the buildings, flying without any machines to help them. Incredible, Jake whispered to himself. His shuttle was being guided by the aliens' technology. He was not in control of where it went. This made him nervous, but he tried to stay calm. He had come this far by trusting these people. He had to keep trusting them now. The shuttle landed in a large courtyard in front of the biggest building Jake had ever seen. It looked like a palace made entirely of crystal and light. Alien soldiers waited for him outside. They wore armor that seemed to be made of pure energy. Jake took a deep breath and opened the shuttle door. The moment he stepped outside, something strange happened. All of the alien soldiers took a step backward. They looked scared. Jake could hear them making sounds to each other in their musical language, but he could not understand what they were saying. "I come in peace," Jake said, raising his hands to show he had no weapons. One of the soldiers, braver than the others, approached him. The soldier's skin was blue and his eyes glowed with purple light. He was taller than Jake and very thin. The soldier spoke, and Jake's translation device worked to change the words into English. "Human Jake Morrison, you will follow. You will not resist." "I understand," Jake said as they walked toward the palace. Jake noticed something odd. Everywhere they went, aliens stopped what they were doing and stared at him. Some of them looked afraid, others looked curious, but all of them seemed confused. The palace was even more beautiful inside than outside. The walls were made of crystal that changed colors as Jake walked past. Light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The floors were smooth as glass, but felt warm under his feet. They walked through many long hallways. Jake saw other aliens watching him from doorways and corners. All of them kept their distance. It was like they thought he might be dangerous. Finally, they reached a pair of enormous doors. The doors were made of the same glowing crystal as everything else, but they were covered in strange symbols that moved and changed as Jake watched them. The doors opened without anyone touching them. Jake stepped into the throne room and gasped. The room was huge, with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. The walls curved around in a perfect circle, and they were covered in moving patterns of light. In the center of the room sat a throne that looked like it was made of captured starlight, and on the throne sat the queen. She was young, much younger than Jake had expected. She looked to be about his age, maybe a little younger. Her skin was pale blue, almost white, and her long hair was silver. Her eyes glowed with the same purple light as the other aliens, but brighter. She was beautiful, but that was not what surprised Jake the most. What surprised him was that she looked nervous. Around the throne stood several other aliens. They were older and wore elaborate robes. Jake guessed they were advisors or ministers. All of them were staring at him with expressions of fear and curiosity. Jake walked forward slowly. He had practiced what he would do in this moment during the 3-day journey to this planet. He stopped about 10 ft from the throne and gave a respectful bow. "Your Majesty," he said, "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Aurora. I thank you for allowing me to visit your world." The queen stared at him for a long moment, then she spoke. And her voice was soft and musical. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? Jake asked. A monster, she said honestly, something terrible and frightening. Our people have never encountered minds that we cannot read. We thought you must be evil creatures, hiding your thoughts from us. Jake smiled. We're not hiding anything from you, we just don't have the ability to share thoughts the way you do. Queen leaned forward in her throne. This is what confuses us. How do you communicate with each other? How do you build ships and travel between stars without sharing minds? We use words. Jake said, we speak to each other like we're doing now. We write things down. We use our hands to point and show each other things. One of the older aliens stepped forward. Impossible. No intelligent species can work together without mental connection. How do you know what others are thinking? How do you trust each other? Jake thought about this question. It was a good one. We don't know what others are thinking, he said. We have to ask them. We have to listen to their words and watch their actions. Trust takes time to build. The queen looked fascinated. You cannot sense the emotions of others. You cannot feel their intentions. No, Jake said, we have to learn about people by spending time with them. Sometimes people lie to us, sometimes they hide things. But most of the time, people tell us the truth if we ask them directly. This sounds very difficult, the queen said. It can be, Jake agreed. But it also makes life interesting. Every person is a mystery that we have to solve. Every conversation teaches us something new. The queen was quiet for a moment, then she asked, what is your name for me? What do you call me in your thoughts? I call you your majesty. Because you are a queen, Jake said. But I don't know your actual name. My name is Larry, she said. In your language, it would mean Song of Stars. That's a beautiful name, Jake said. Sincerely, Lally looked surprised. You think it is beautiful even though you cannot hear the music in it the way my people do. Yes, Jake said. Sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones we cannot fully understand. This seemed to surprise the queen even more. She stood up from her throne and walked down the steps toward Jake. Her advisors looked worried, but she ignored them. Tell me about your people, she said. Tell me about humans. Jake spent the next hour talking about Earth and humanity. He told her about human cities and farms. He explained how humans learned by reading books and attending schools. He described human families and friendships. He talked about human art and music and literature. Lally listened to every word with intense interest. She asked many questions. She wanted to know how humans made decisions without reading each other's minds. She was curious about human emotions and how people express them without telepathy. You said that trust takes time to build, she said. And GT, how long does it take? And GT, it depends, Jake said. Sometimes you can trust someone quickly if they prove themselves to you. Sometimes it takes years, and sometimes you trust someone and they disappoint you. What happens? Then you learn from it. You become more careful, but you don't stop trusting people completely. If you do that, you end up alone. Lyra nodded slowly. I understand. You take risks with your trust because the rewards are worth it. Exactly, Jake said. One of the older advisors stepped forward again. Your Majesty, this is enough. We have learned what we need to know about these creatures. Now we should decide what to do with them. Learily looked at the advisor with annoyance. General Keithmer, I am the Queen. I will decide when this conversation is finished. Jake realized that this General Keithmer did not like him. The alien's eyes glowed brighter when he looked at Jake, and his expression was hostile. Your Majesty, General Keithar said, these humans are dangerous. They cannot be controlled by our powers. If more of them come, they could threaten our empire, or they could teach us new ways of thinking, Lala said firmly. The tension in the room was growing. Jake could sense that there was conflict between the Queen and her advisors, even without being able to read their minds. Your Majesty, Jake said carefully, I don't want to cause problems for you. If my presence here is creating difficulties, I can leave. Lyra turned to look at him. For a moment, Jake saw something in her eyes that he had not expected to see. She looked lonely. No, she said, you stay. I want to learn more about your people, and I think my people need to learn about yours as well. General Keithar's eyes flashed with anger, but he said nothing. Jake realized that this meeting was just the beginning. He had come to make contact with an alien species, but he had found something more complicated. He had found a young queen who was struggling with her own people, and a general who saw humans as a threat. The next few days would determine whether humans and Zafarans would become friends or enemies. And Jake Morrison, standing in a crystal throne room on an alien world, knew that the future of two species might depend on the choices he made. Jake had been on Vithura for 5 days now. Each day he met with Queen Lyrily in her throne room. They talked for hours about their different peoples and worlds. Jake learned that the Zafaran Empire was much larger than he had imagined. It controlled 12 solar systems and hundreds of different alien species, but he also learned that the Empire had problems. Many of the species we rule are becoming restless, Laryl told him during one of their conversations. They no longer want to serve us. Some are planning to rebel. Why do they serve you in the first place? Jake asked. Lyra looked uncomfortable. Because we make them. When we first made a new species, we enter their minds and show them our power. They become afraid and agree to join our empire. Jake felt a chill at these words. You force them to obey you. It is the way things have always been done, Lyra said. The strong rule the weak. Those with greater mental powers lead those with lesser powers. But what if they don't want to be ruled? Ly was quiet for a moment. I had never thought about that before I met you. Your people are not ruled by anyone except yourselves. Are you? We have governments, Jake said, but the people choose their leaders. If we don't like our leaders, we can choose new ones. How is that possible? How do the weak choose to be led by the weak? Jake realized that Lyra's entire understanding of society was based on mental power. In her world, the people with the strongest telepathic abilities naturally became leaders. The idea that people could choose their own leaders regardless of power was completely foreign to her. On Earth, we believe that all people have value, Jake explained. A person with great physical strength is not automatically a better leader than someone who is wise but weak. A person who can sing beautifully is not more important than someone who grows food. But how do you decide who leads? We choose people who we think will make good decisions for everyone. We look for people who are honest, intelligent, and who care about others, Lai shook her head in amazement. This sounds very complicated. It is, Jake admitted, but it means that everyone has a voice. Everyone matters. As the days passed, Jake noticed that Queen Layali seemed different. She was more thoughtful. She asked him many questions about human democracy and freedom. She seemed to be thinking about ideas that had never occurred to her before. But Jake also noticed that General Keithmer and the other advisors were becoming more hostile toward him. They watched him constantly. They whispered to each other when they thought he couldn't see them, and they often tried to interrupt his conversations with the Queen. On the 6th day, Lai asked Jake to walk with her in her private garden. The garden was beautiful, with plants that glowed with soft light and flowers that changed colors, but Jake could tell that the Queen was worried about something. "My advisors think you are dangerous," she said as they walked along a path made of crystal stones. "Do you think I'm dangerous?" Jake asked. "Not in the way they mean," Lai said, "but yes, I think you are dangerous. The ideas you share are changing how I think about my empire. They make me question things I have never questioned before." Jake stopped walking. "Is that bad?" Lyra turned to face him. "I don't know. 3 years ago my parents were killed by people who wanted to take over the empire. Since then I have worked very hard to keep everything stable, but the ideas you share, they could change everything. Change isn't always bad," Jake said gently. "No, but it can be scary," Lyra replied. "My people have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. Our way of life has kept peace between the stars. If I change too much, too quickly, it could lead to war." Jake understood her fear. And GT, she was young and had inherited enormous responsibility. And GT, any mistake she made could affect billions of lives. "On Earth we have a saying," Jake told her. "We say that the only constant is change. Everything changes eventually. The question is whether we guide that change or let it happen to us." Lai smiled sadly. "You humans have many wise sayings." That evening, Jake was in his guest quarters when Commander Lisa Park contacted him through his communication device. She had been waiting with the Aurora at the edge of the Zaffiran system. "Captain," Lisa's voice said through the small speaker, "Admiral Burke is getting impatient. He wants you back immediately. He's threatening to send a rescue mission. Tell him I need more time." Jake said, "I'm making progress here." "What kind of progress? Are they going to be allies or enemies?" Jake thought about this question. "I'm not sure yet. Their queen seems open to friendship, but her military leaders don't trust us." "That doesn't sound good." "It's complicated," Jake said. "These people have a very different way of thinking about power and leadership, but I think the Queen is starting to understand our perspective." "Captain, be careful. You've been there almost week. We don't know what they might be doing to you." After the conversation ended, Jake lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. His room was comfortable, but he missed his ship and his crew. He missed the familiar sounds of human voices and human laughter. More importantly, he was starting to worry about the tension he saw growing in the Zaffiran court. General Keithmer clearly saw humans as a threat to Zaffiran power. The other advisors seemed to agree with him. Only Queen Lyra seemed interested in peaceful contact. The next morning, Jake was awakened by the sound of arguing outside his room. He got dressed quickly and opened his door. He could see General Keith talking angrily with two other Zapirian officers. They were speaking in their own language, but Jake's translation device picked up some of their words. The human has been here too long. General Cathmer was saying he is poisoning the Queen's mind with his strange ideas. What do you suggest? One of the other officers asked. We should eliminate the threat, the general replied. Both the human and anyone who has been influenced by him. Jake felt a chill of fear. The general was talking about killing him, but worse, he seemed to be suggesting that Queen Lyra was also in danger. Jake closed his door quietly and sat down to think. He had two choices. He could try to escape and warn Earth about the danger, or he could stay and try to protect Lyra. If he left, the general might kill the Queen and then attack Earth. If he stayed, he might be able to help Lyra, but he would be putting himself in great danger. Jake thought about Queen Lyra. In the past week, he had come to respect her. She was young and inexperienced, but she was trying to be a good leader for her people. She was also the only Zahirian who seemed willing to consider peaceful relations with humanity. If she died, any chance of friendship between humans and Zafirans would die with her. Jake made his decision. He would stay and try to help her, but first he needed to warn her about the danger. He opened his door carefully and looked around. The Zapirian officers were gone. Jake walked quickly through the crystal hallways toward the throne room. He had to find Lyra before it was too late, but as he turned a corner, he ran straight into General Keithmer. The general's eyes glowed brightly with anger. Human, he said, you should not be wandering the palace alone. I was looking for the Queen, Jake said, trying to stay calm. The Queen is busy, the general replied. She does not have time to fill her head with more of your poisonous ideas. Jake realized that the general knew he had been listening to their conversation. The situation was even more dangerous than he had thought. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Jake said carefully. General Keithmer smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. No misunderstanding, human. You came here claiming to want peace, but really, you came to destroy our way of life. That's not true, isn't it? You have filled our Queen's mind with doubts about her own empire. You have made her question the natural order of things. You are a threat to everything we have built. Jake knew that arguing would only make things worse, but he had to try to reach the Queen. Where is Queen Lyra? He asked. That is no longer your concern, the general said. Your time here is finished. Behind the general, Jake could see other Zapirian soldiers approaching. Their hands glowed with purple energy, ready to use their weapons. Jake Morrison realized that he was about to fight for his life, but more than that, he was about to fight for the future of two species that had never learned to trust each other. Jake raised his hands to show he was not armed, but General Cathimer and his soldiers continued to approach. Their weapons glowed brighter, ready to fire. Wait, Jake said, before you do anything, you should know that my ship is watching this planet. If something happens to me, they will send a message to Earth. More humans will come and they will be ready for war. General Keithmer laughed. Let them come. We will destroy them just as we will destroy you. Are you sure about that? Jake asked. You couldn't even board my ship. Your mental powers don't work on humans. How will you fight an enemy you cannot control? For a moment the general looked uncertain. Jake could see doubt in his glowing eyes, but then the general's expression hardened again. We have other weapons, he said. We ruled this galaxy long before we met you, and we will rule it long after you are gone. The soldiers were only a few feet away. Now Jake knew he had to do something. But he was outnumbered and had no weapons. Then he heard a voice behind him. Stop! Everyone turned to see Queen Lily walking down the hallway. She was not alone. Several of her personal guards walked with her, and their weapons were pointed at General Keithmer's soldiers. My queen, the general said, trying to sound respectful. This human is dangerous. He must be eliminated. The only dangerous person here is you, General. Lily said coldly. I heard your conversation this morning. You were planning to kill Captain Morrison. You were also planning to kill me. General Keithmer and LT Unk and GT's eyes widened with surprise. My queen, I don't know what this human has told you, but he told me nothing. Lyrilla interrupted. I heard your words with my own ears. You said I had been poisoned by human ideas. You said both the human and anyone influenced by him should be eliminated. Jake felt relief wash over him. Lyrilla had discovered the plot on her own. My queen, General Keithmer said desperately, these humans threaten everything we have built. They cannot be controlled. They will inspire our subjects to rebel against us. And what if they do? Laryl asked. What if our subjects no longer want to serve an empire that forces them to obey? The general stared at her in shock. You cannot mean that, my queen. You are talking about the destruction of our civilization. No, Lily said firmly. I am talking about the evolution of our civilization. She turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, I owe you an apology. Some of my people have not treated you with the respect you deserve. There's no need to apologize, Jake said. I understand their fear, but there is a need, Lyrilla insisted. You came here in peace, offering friendship. In return, we threatened your life, General Keithmer stepped forward angrily. My queen, you are making a terrible mistake. This human has filled your mind with false ideas about democracy and freedom. These concepts will destroy our empire. Maybe they will, Lyra said, or maybe they will make our empire stronger. The general raised his weapon toward Jake. I will not let this human destroy everything we have worked for. But before he could fire, something unexpected happened. Several of the other Zapirian soldiers turned their weapons on the general instead of on Jake. Lower your weapon, General, one of them said. We serve the queen, not you. General Kessmer looked around in surprise. He had expected all of the soldiers to follow him, but only half of them had. The others remained loyal to Queen Laurel. You are making a mistake, the general said to the loyal soldiers. This queen is too young and too influenced by alien ideas. She will lead our empire to ruin. That is not your decision to make, the soldier replied. The queen rules, we obey. For a moment Jake thought the conflict might end peacefully, but then General Keithmer made a desperate choice. He turned his weapon on Queen Lyrilla. If you will not listen to reason, he said, then you are no longer fit to rule. Jake didn't think, he just moved. He threw himself between the general and the queen just as the weapon fired. Purple energy hit him in the chest, and pain shot through his entire body. He fell to the ground gasping. The throne room erupted in chaos. Lyra's guards fought with the general soldiers, energy. Weapons fired in all directions. Jake tried to stand up, but his body wouldn't obey him through the noise and confusion. He heard Lurley's voice. Enough, the fighting stopped. Everyone turned to look at the queen. She was kneeling beside Jake, her hands glowing with healing energy. This human risked his life to save mine, she said, her voice filled with emotion. He could have escaped to his ship and left us to fight among ourselves. Instead, he stayed to help us. She looked up at General Keithmer, who was now surrounded by loyal guards. General, you have committed treason. You tried to kill your queen and an innocent visitor to our world. I was trying to save our empire, the general said stubbornly. No, Lau replied. You were trying to preserve your own power. There is a difference. The queen's healing energy was working. Jake could feel strength returning to his body. Slowly he sat up. Thank you, he said to Lily. I should be thanking you, she replied. You saved my life. Jake looked around the throne room. Some of the soldiers were wounded, but the fighting was over. General Keithmer was in custody, and the other rebels had surrendered. What happens now? Jake asked. Lyra stood up and walked to her throne. Now we chain things, she said, not quickly, not carelessly, but gradually and thoughtfully. She turned to address all of the people in the room. For too long, our empire has been built on fear and control. We have forced other species to serve us because we were stronger, but strength without wisdom is not leadership, it is tyranny. Some of the soldiers looked confused, but others nodded in agreement. I hereby declare that any species in our empire that wishes to leave may do so freely. Lyra continued. Those who choose to stay will be treated as partners, not servants. The room was silent. This was the most radical change in Zapirian policy in thousands of years. My queen, one of the advisors said carefully, this will cause chaos throughout the empire. Perhaps, Learly said, but it will also cause justice. And in the long run, justice is more important than order. She looked at Jake. Captain Morrison, I would like to offer formal diplomatic relations between our peoples. Will you carry this message back to Earth? Jake stood up slowly. I will, but I have a condition. What condition? You must promise that humans and Zephyrians will treat each other as equals. No mental control, no forced obedience, just honest communication and mutual respect. Lyra smiled. I promise. 3 days later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Aurora as it prepared to leave Zirian space. Through the window, he could see escort ships from Queen Lyralee's fleet. They were not there as guards, but as an honor escort for Earth's first interstellar ambassador. Captain, Commander Lisa Park said, I still can't believe you survived all that. Neither can I, Jake admitted, but it was worth it. Do you really think this alliance will work? Our species are so different. Jake thought about Queen Lyralee and the courage she had shown in standing up to her own people. He thought about the Zahirian soldiers who had chosen loyalty over rebellion. He thought about the possibility of humans and aliens working together to explore the galaxy. Yes, he said finally, I think it will work, not because we're the same, but because we're different. We can learn from each other. As the Aurora jumped to hyperspace carrying news of humanity's first alien alliance back to Earth, Jake Morrison smiled. He had gone into space to explore the unknown. Instead, he had found something Even more valuable, he had found proof that understanding was possible between any two people, no matter how different they might be. All it took was the courage to listen, the wisdom to respect differences, and the faith to believe that friendship was stronger than fear. Behind him in Zephyrian space, Queen Locke stood in her throne room and watched the human ship disappear into the stars. She was beginning the difficult work of reforming an empire, but she was no longer afraid. She had learned from a brave human that true strength came not from controlling others but from working with them. The galaxy would never be the same.